My nephew Derek called me into his office at 3:47 on a Tuesday afternoon and told me I was being let go. Not retired, not thanked for 4 decades of service. Let go. Uncle James, he said, not meeting my eyes, we're restructuring. Your position is redundant. We need people who understand digital workflows and modern efficiency metrics. You'll have 2 weeks to clear out your desk. I'm James Holloway. I'm 64 years old. For the past 40 years, I've worked at Holloway & Sons Printing, the company my grandfather founded in 1952. I started there at 24, right out of trade school, learning offset printing from my father. I worked every position in that building. Press operator, bindery technician, pre-press manager, production supervisor. When my brother Richard took over as CEO in 1998, I became operations director. When Richard died of a heart attack 5 years ago, his son Derek inherited everything. Derek was 31 when he became CEO. MBA from Northwestern, 3 years at a Chicago consulting firm, full of ideas about disruption and optimization. His wife Vanessa, 29, became VP of marketing. She had 40,000 Instagram followers and called herself a brand strategist. Together, they were going to drag Holloway & Sons into the 21st century, whether the 21st century wanted us or not. I sat in Derek's glass-walled office and looked at the boy I'd taught to operate a Heidelberg press when he was 16. The boy whose college tuition I'd helped pay when Richard's medical bills piled up. The boy who'd called me Uncle Jim until he was 12. 2 weeks, I repeated. HR will send the paperwork. Standard severance package. 3 months salary. He glanced at his Apple Watch. Vanessa's waiting for me. We have a pitch meeting. I stood up. What about the anniversary party? The 45-year celebration you're planning for next month? Oh. He had the decency to look uncomfortable. We're pivoting that. Celebrating 45 years of innovation instead of dwelling on the past. More forward thinking. Vanessa designed the whole campaign. I walked out of his office and down the stairs to the production floor. The building smelled like ink and paper, the same smell I'd breathed for 40 years. The presses were running. The big Komori we'd installed in 2019. The digital HP Indigo I'd researched and recommended. The bindery hummed with activity. None of the younger employees looked up as I passed. Why would they? To them, I was just old Jim from operations, the guy who still wore steel-toed boots and carried a clipboard instead of a tablet. Derek and Vanessa had been telling everyone for months that we needed fresh blood, new perspectives, people who got it. I got it just fine. I went to my office, the small room off the production floor that had been mine for 26 years, and opened the bottom drawer of my filing cabinet. The documents were exactly where I'd kept them since 1994. Property deed for 2840 Industrial Parkway, registered to J.R. Holloway Holdings, LLC. Mortgage satisfaction letter dated June 2009. Current property tax statements showing the assessed value at $4.2 million. Nobody at Holloway & Sons knew I owned the building we worked in. Not Derek, not Vanessa, not the 47 employees who showed up every day thinking they worked for a family company on family property. They were half right. It was family property. My family. Just me. Let me back up. In 1994, Holloway & Sons was dying. My father had passed away the year before. Richard was CEO, but he was overwhelmed. The printing industry was changing fast. Desktop publishing was killing traditional typesetting. Clients wanted faster turnaround, lower prices, more services. We were hemorrhaging money. The building we'd operated from since 1976, this building, was owned by Parkway Properties, a local real estate investment group. Our lease was up for renewal. They wanted to triple our rent or sell the property to a developer who'd turn it into luxury condos. Richard couldn't afford either option. We were 6 months from bankruptcy. I'd been saving money since I started working, living below my means, investing carefully. I had $340,000 in mutual funds and CDs. I went to Richard and made him an offer. I'll buy the building. You pay me rent at the old rate. When things improve, we renegotiate. Richard cried, actual tears in his office. Jim, I can't let you risk everything. You're not letting me. I'm choosing to. We structured it carefully with a lawyer Richard trusted, but Derek never met. I created J.R. Holloway Holdings, LLC, James Robert Holloway, that's me, and bought the property for $280,000 in April 1994. Richard signed a 30-year lease at $3,800 a month, well below market rate. The deal was simple. As long as Holloway & Sons operated profitably, the rent stayed low. If the company ever needed to relocate or close, I'd sell the building and split the proceeds. But Richard never told Derek about the arrangement. He meant to, I'm sure. But then he got sick in 2019, declined fast, and died before he could explain the full financial picture. Derek inherited the company thinking everything was included: equipment, client lists, brand, building. He never looked at the lease paperwork, never asked who owned the property, just assumed. For 5 years, Derek's been paying me $3,800 a month in rent without realizing it. The checks come from the company account to J.R. Holloway Holdings, LLC, which Derek's bookkeeper thinks is some old contract from his father's era. Probably maintenance or insurance. Nobody questioned it. Until now, I'd been fine with the arrangement. I wasn't doing it for profit. I was doing it to protect my family's legacy. The building was worth over $4 million now. I could have sold it 100 times. But this was where my grandfather started with a single letterpress in 1952, where my father taught me to mix ink by feel, where I'd spent 40 years building something that mattered. Derek and Vanessa didn't see any of that. They saw an old man taking up space, drawing a salary, representing everything backward about the company they were trying to rebrand. 2 weeks to clear out my desk. I called my lawyer that evening. Margaret Preston, 61, sharp as broken glass, had handled the original property purchase in 1994. Margaret, I need to review the terms of the Holloway & Sons lease. James, what happened? They let me go. Derek says I'm redundant. Long silence. Then, the lease has a family continuity clause. If family ownership ends, or if a founding family member is removed without cause, the lease terms are voidable at your discretion. I know. I wrote that clause. What do you want to do? I looked around my small apartment, 1 bedroom in a building 3 blocks from the shop. I'd lived simply for 40 years, saved most of what I earned, kept the building maintained, paid my taxes, never asked for recognition or gratitude. I want them to understand what they're throwing away, I said. Give me 48 hours. I went to work the next day like normal. Wore my steel-toed boots, carried my clipboard, walked the production floor, checked press calibrations, talked to the crew. None of them knew I'd been fired. Derek hadn't announced it yet. Probably waiting until after my 2 weeks were up to avoid awkwardness. Vanessa came down to the floor around 10 a.m. with a photographer and a ring light. She was shooting content for Instagram. Day in the life at H&S. Watch us revolutionize printing. She walked right past me like I was invisible, set up shots of the younger press operators, had them explain the innovative processes we used, processes I'd implemented 15 years ago. I watched her film a segment in front of the Komori press. This is Marcus, our lead press operator. Marcus, tell our followers how we're changing the game. Marcus, 26, grinned at the camera. We're all about efficiency here. Fast turnaround, quality output, cutting-edge tech. This company's future is bright. Vanessa panned across the production floor. 45 years of innovation, and we're just getting started. This is what progress looks like. I went back to my office and pulled up the building's property records on my computer. Margaret had been busy. She'd already filed notice of lease termination with Derek's attorney. Standard 90-day notice as specified in the original agreement. The lease would end on January 15th. After that, if Derek wanted to stay in the building, he'd need to negotiate new terms. Market rate for 32,000 square feet of industrial space in this area was about $18 per square foot annually. That's $576,000 a year. Currently, Derek was paying $4,600. The math was going to hurt. Derek called an emergency meeting 2 days later, Friday afternoon, 4 p.m. Everyone gathered in the break room. The production floor went quiet. Derek stood at the front, face red. Vanessa beside him, scrolling through her phone with an expression like she'd bitten into a lemon. "I've received some disturbing information," Derek started. "It appears there's been a significant misunderstanding about our facility lease. For the past 30 years, we've been operating under favorable terms due to a family arrangement I wasn't aware of. That arrangement is being terminated." Murmurs rippled through the room. Marcus raised his hand. "What does that mean for us?" "It means," Derek said tightly, "that our rent is going up substantially. We're looking at an increase of over $500,000 annually starting in January." Dead silence. "Who owns the building?" someone asked. Derek's jaw clenched. "James does." Every head turned toward me. I stood in the back, arms crossed, saying nothing. "Uncle Jim owns the building?" Marcus looked confused. "Like our building?" "Yes." Derek's voice was sharp. "Apparently, he purchased it in 1994 and has been charging us below market rent for 3 decades. Now he's decided to change the terms." "Actually," I said quietly, and the room went quieter still, "I'm not changing the terms. I'm ending the lease. The original agreement specified that if a founding family member was removed from the company without cause, I could terminate at my discretion. You fired me. I'm exercising that right." Vanessa looked up from her phone. "That's blackmail." "That's contract law," I corrected. "Your husband signed termination papers removing me after 40 years of service. The lease termination is a direct consequence of that decision." Derek's face went from red to purple. "So what? You're throwing everyone out of the building? 47 people lose their jobs because of your ego?" "No," I said calmly. 47 people lose their jobs if you can't figure out how to pay market rent or relocate in 90 days. I'm not throwing anyone out. I'm simply no longer subsidizing the company that decided I was redundant." Marcus spoke up again. "Wait, so Uncle Jim's been keeping our rent low this whole time?" "For 30 years, I confirmed. "Your grandfather Richard was going bankrupt in 1994. I bought this building to save the company. I charged below market rent so we could stay competitive. That was the deal. Family takes care of family." The room processed this. Vanessa found her voice. "So you've been profiting off us for 30 years. "I've been losing money for 30 years, I corrected. "Market rent would have generated $15 million in revenue since 1994. I've collected $1.4 million. I subsidized this company to the tune of $13.6 million because it was my family's legacy. But apparently I'm redundant. So now you get to see what this company looks like without me." Derek stepped forward. "Uncle Jim, let's talk about this privately." "We're past private conversations. You fired me in your office without discussion. I'm terminating a lease through proper legal channels. Everything by the book." "What do you want?" Derek's voice cracked. "A raise? Your job back? What?" "I want you to understand what you threw away." I walked toward the door. "You've got 90 days. Margaret Preston has all the documentation. I'm told market rate for this space is around $48,000 per month. You're currently paying $3,800. Good luck with your restructuring." I left the building, drove home, poured myself 2 fingers of bourbon and sat on my tiny balcony, watching the sunset over the industrial park where my family's company was falling apart. Margaret called that evening. Derek's attorney contacted me. They want to negotiate. "Tell them we can discuss lease renewal terms after January 15th. James, they can't afford market rate. The company operates on thin margins. This will bankrupt them." "I know, Richard knew too. That's why he accepted my help." Derek chose to forget that help was conditional on treating family with respect. He's talking about challenging the lease terms in court. He can try. You wrote that contract. It's bulletproof. He's also spreading word that you're sabotaging the company out of spite. Let him talk. The numbers speak for themselves. Over the next 2 weeks, I watched the story unfold from a distance. Derek scrambled to find new space. Everything available was either too small, too expensive, or too far from our client base. Moving the heavy presses would cost hundreds of thousands. Some couldn't be moved at all without complete disassembly and recalibration. He tried to negotiate with me through Margaret. Would I consider a graduated increase? Maybe go up to $10,000 a month for the first year? I declined. Market rate or the building goes on the market. Those were the only two options. He tried appealing to my sentimentality. This is Grandpa's company, Dad's legacy, our family name. I sent back a simple message. It was our family company when I was part of the family. You change that. Vanessa posted on Instagram about toxic family dynamics and elder abuse in business. Her followers ate it up. The comments filled with support for the young entrepreneurs being extorted by a bitter old man. I didn't respond, didn't need to. 3 weeks after I left, Derek held another company meeting. I heard about it from Marcus, who called me that evening. Uncle Jim, Derek just told us we're closing. He can't afford to move, can't afford to stay. He's liquidating equipment and shutting down operations in January. I'm sorry, Marcus. He says it's your fault, that you're destroying 70 years of history over a grudge. Marcus, who do you think kept that history alive for the past 30 years? Silence on the line. Then, he really didn't know you owned the building. He never asked, never looked at the paperwork, just assumed everything was his because his father died. That's messed up. Yes, it is. What are you going to do with the building? Good question. Margaret had already fielded 3 offers from developers. The area was gentrifying fast. Luxury condos, trendy restaurants, craft breweries. Industrial space was prime real estate now. I could sell for $4.5 million easily. But that felt wrong too. I called Margaret back. How much would it cost to buy Holloway & Sons equipment and client contracts? Derek's liquidating everything. Probably take $400,000 to buy the assets at auction. Do it. Create a new LLC. Holloway & Sons was my grandfather's company. My father's company. My company. It doesn't die because Derek was stupid. James, you'd be starting over at 64. I'd be continuing what should never have stopped. The auction happened in early December. I bought everything. The Komori press, the Indigo digital press, the bindery equipment, the client contracts, the phone number, the website, the trademark. Everything except Derek's office furniture and Vanessa's ring light. Total cost, $380,000. I retained 32 of the 47 employees, the ones who'd been there for years, the ones who knew the trade. I hired Marcus as production manager, offered him profit sharing. We reopened January 2nd as Holloway & Sons Printing, new generation. Same building, same name, same quality, different ownership. Derek and Vanessa left town. I heard they moved to Austin. Something about a digital consulting startup. Her Instagram went private. I ran into Derek's mother, Richard's widow, Carol, at the grocery store in February. She hugged me in the produce aisle and cried, "Jim, Richard wanted Derek to know about the building. He had it in his will. Derek just never read the full documents, only looked at the asset transfer pages." I figured. Derek called me last week. He's angry, bitter, says you destroyed him. Carol, I gave your family 30 years of below-market rent. I saved Richard's company in 1994. I worked without complaint for 4 decades. Derek destroyed himself the day he forgot that loyalty goes both ways. She squeezed my hand. Richard would be proud of what you're doing now, keeping it going. That's all I ever wanted. I'm still running the company today, 9 months later. Revenue's up 30% because we're not hemorrhaging money on Derek's innovative marketing strategies. Turns out clients care about quality and turnaround time more than Instagram followers. Marcus asked me last week if I regretted how things went down. Do you? I asked him back. No. We've got profit sharing now. We make decisions based on what works, not what looks good on social media. This feels like the company I started at 5 years ago, before Derek changed everything. That's your answer. I still wear steel-toed boots, still carry a clipboard, still walk the production floor every morning, checking calibrations, talking to the crew. The building still smells like ink and paper, but now everyone knows I'm not just old Jim from operations. I'm the guy who spent 30 years protecting something worth protecting, even when nobody noticed. Derek spent 5 years trying to prove he was smarter, more modern, more capable than the generation before him. He was so busy looking forward that he forgot to look at the ground he was standing on. Turns out that ground was mine. Always had been. When they kicked me out after 40 years, they thought they were shedding dead weight. What they actually did was cut the foundation out from under their own feet. I didn't destroy Holloway & Sons. I built it twice. Once in 1994 when I bought the building. Again in 2025 when I bought it back from Derek's wreckage. That's the difference between ownership and entitlement. Derek felt entitled to everything his father built. I owned it, literally, because I'd sacrificed and invested and worked for 4 decades without asking for credit. The next time someone tells you that you're redundant, make sure they understand what would happen if you actually left. Sometimes the most important person in the room is the one nobody notices until they're gone. And sometimes the building you take for granted belongs to the old man you just kicked out.